Hello, everybody, and welcome to a long overdue episode of Ranking Spankings. I think it's what we call these, isn't it?
It sure is.
It's been a while since we've done one of these, but we're here back on the UDS Music YouTube channel with our first one in a long time. I don't know what the last one was. What was the last one?
It was probably one of Craig's. Was it the Gorillas? No, it was Aquabats. It was Aquabats.
Aquabats. Yeah, that was Craig and Neil.
Yeah, we were just like, it's finished. Perfection. You don't need to do another one ever again.
And so here we are doing another one. This time we're looking at Biffy Clyro, 9 studio albums deep at this point, as of only a month ago at time of recording. Biffy Clyro are, above all else, Biffy Clyro. I don't think you can ever say they've released a song that doesn't sound like Biffy Clyro. You know what they sound like, and it's not really changed all that much, aside from becoming perhaps a little more grandiose over time. Is there anything we need to plug before we start talking about Biffy?
No, you're already here on UDS Music, the YouTube channel. So yeah, enjoy this channel here. We've got other tier lists. We've got band interviews. Otherwise, visit UpsideDownShark.com to find out everything else we've got going on, whether it be movies, music, video games. We talk about all the cool stuff and sometimes uncool stuff. Rumor has it we may even have a theater section soon, but watch this space.
I've not heard that rumor.
For those of you that are unaware, we've already got 3 YouTube channels, but Tom's like, let's just make more. Yeah, we can subscribe to ourselves.
No. The theatre thing will be a purely website thing, and it's only if a certain member of UDS actually bothers to do it.
Once we have 100 YouTube channels, then all of our YouTube channels will have 100 subscribers. It just makes sense.
I like it.
He's talking that 4D chess right now.
I'm Dobby, if you don't know who I am, and I'm joined by my 2 regular UDS chums, Tom and Craig. You know, you've heard us on the podcast, maybe, or maybe you've not heard us. Maybe you're seeing and hearing us for the first time. Hello. How's it going, boys? You feeling ready for some Biff?
Mon the Biff. Come on, boys. We can do it.
So I feel like I'm like, yeah, Mon the Biff. But Tom's like, hey, corporations, Mon the Biff.
Hello, fellow kids. Do you mon the Biff?
I've got my hair long now. Let's go to this rock concert.
Did you hear Biffy Clyro played the Vox Social last night?
Down at the discotheque, I hear. Grand time for all.
See, this is why I should be listening to Marmaduke Duke instead, because they kind of have that whole vibe.
Well, let's talk about what we're going to do. We're going to put all of Biffy Clyro's studio albums, just the studio albums, none of the B-side collections, none of the live albums, not even... Actually, no, I've covered everything except the soundtrack album, Balance of Symmetry. We're just doing the studio albums, all 9 of them, Blackened Sky through The Myth of the Happily Ever After. We're putting them into a tier list, as you can probably see already. That goes from very good to A to B to C, and then right at the bottom is Biffy Clyro. I apologize.
It should have been Biffy Velcro. That would have been better, because it's a rip-off.
Okay. Yes. Stick it to the man.
Can I just also mention Revelations live at Wembley is a very good live album, and
that is a very good live album. You're right, but we're not ranking it today. If we were, it would likely be right at the top, honestly. Okay, then. So I love Biffy Clyro. I don't think until preparing for this tier list I realized quite how much I love Biffy Clyro. To be honest, I've listened through all of the albums over this last week, and yeah, I massively overlooked Biffy Clyro in the last few years. I'm a big fan. What about you boys?
Yeah, no, I enjoy the Biff. I think there's going to be a definite divide in the types of the albums I really enjoy and the ones that I'm not so keen on. But broadly speaking, yeah, they are one of, I think, the most exciting, most pivotal British rock bands of the past 20 years.
I jumped on board around their 4th album called Puzzle. And when you said, oh, there's 9 albums now, I was like, what? And then I was like, no, that makes sense. I enjoy such a weird variety of music, and Biffy Clyro are one of those sort of bands that encompass different genres. So it'd be interesting to see where this all ends up, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very mixed bag in terms of how this goes, because I'm not sure. I think myself and Tom, at the very least, are sort of like very different things. I don't know where you're going to come in the middle, Craig, honestly, in this one.
I always come in the middle, baby.
I won't say that. Blackened Sky is where we'll start then, which was their first studio album released all the way back in 2002, nearly 20 years ago. But also, feels like Biffy have been around a lot longer than that, doesn't it, in many ways? I think they've been a bit omnipresent over the last decade or so.
I think the thing is that because of the beard and the face and the hair, Simon Neil, the frontman, hasn't really aged at all in the past sort of 20 years. So it just feels, as you say, that there's just this ever-present entity within the music scene.
Yeah. Blackened Sky then, I don't know if what I'd say about Blackened Sky. To me, I consider it sort of an emo record, I guess. Would you follow up on that?
100%. I think you only have to look at tracks like Joy, whatever it is. I'm just making sure I've got the actual thing. What one is it? I mean, no, I'm thinking the other one. I'm thinking of Just Boy and Joy Discovery Invention, should I say, which are basically emo bangers. Like not emo in sort of, the whole sort of eye makeup and everything like that, but in sort of like the classic sort of, turn of the century style emo. It's almost dictionary definition.
Craig, are you a fan of Blackened Sky?
This album has my favourite Biffy Clyro song on.
Oh, what is it?
It's 57.
Oh, I'm right in there with you. It's not my favourite Biffy song, but it's my favourite on the album. I love 57.
And hearing it live and people singing along is very, very good. The problem is now that they've got 9 albums, is that this is now not on set lists, and it makes Craig sad.
But at least you've got Revolutions live.
Yeah. At least we still have that. Yes. But yeah, it's. I agree with most of the things Tom said, for that matter.
So when it comes to Biffy Clyro, I think I group their first 3 albums. I sort of grouped together because the 4th album, Puzzles, Craig mentioned, it was sort of a turning point for them, and was probably the point at which a lot of people became aware of Biffy Clyro. And Puzzle Through Opposites is perhaps a sort of second trilogy, as you were, that I group in my head. I think Blackened Sky is my favorite of the first 3 albums. I don't think you two are going to agree on that necessarily. Would you say that?
No, I would say it's my second favorite, but it is not my favorite.
I agree with you, Dobby.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like
awesome.
it.
Oh, this is going to go much more my way than I expected. So Blackened Sky, I think it's my favorite of the first 3. I having not listened to it for several years before this week, I'd completely forgotten how much I love this album. But I think this one just speaks to me in a way that the next 2 that we'll get to shortly sort of fail to live up to, I guess. Just to throw out a potential place to put this album, if I were putting this in myself onto our tier list, I think Blackened Sky would go straight into an A tier.
I would agree.
I would also agree.
Well, okay. I guess that was very easy then. Blackened Sky, I guess we can put in an A. That's a good start. So anything else you want to say about Blackened Sky before we move on?
Not so much.
Tom, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite song?
Of this, probably Joy, Discovery and Invention, the first track. I was interesting to read when I was doing the research for this tier list. A lot of those early Biffy albums were on Beggar's Banquet, the record label that would become Banquet Records, which is one of the coolest sort of not only record labels but record shops in the UK. And I just thought, oh, that's cool. They obviously, before they got their big label break, they were on a pretty neat little record label.
Cool. The second Biffy Clyro album was the Vertigo of Bliss, which was released only just a year after Blackened Sky. They were very prolific their first 3 years. The Vertigo of Bliss, I don't know, post-hardcore, thereabouts?
Yeah, it's getting that way. Like stuff like Toys, 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 Choke, Toys, 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 which is also very fun to say, definitely has more of that vibe. You can start to slowly hear more of those influences that I think would become much more present in the later Biffy albums. But for me, this album doesn't quite hit the mark as much as the first one.
No, I completely agree. I think the Vertigo of Bliss is still a good album front to back, and it was a very good listen when I did it the other day. But I think purely because it comes after Blackened Sky, it suffers a little bit for me just because of how much I enjoy Blackened Sky. So I'm not as into this one, but I do like it. Craig?
I think if you're going to split the first 3 albums off before Puzzle, I think whilst this one is good, when I listen through a Biffy Clyro back catalogue, I feel as though this album's a bit forgettable.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. I think it's an album that very much feels like it's an album rather than it has standout tracks. I think. Does that resonate with my review?
100%. I actually had to just then sort of go back through the track list and be like, what is on this album again? And I was saying to you, Dobby, briefly before we started recording that my first exposure to Biffy was the singles compilation of the first 3 albums. So because of that, I still to this day get a lot of the tracks on these albums sort of like, oh, which one was on that one? Which one was on that one? But this album is the one where I think is the most sort of like, it's a cohesive piece, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't quite have the standout moments of the others.
Okay. Where would you suggest putting this, Tom?
I think somewhere at the top of C, bottom of B, personally.
I am inclined to say top of C as well, I think. I don't, purely because I know what's coming later, and I don't want to say I'm more of a fan of the later Biffy stuff, but I think I tend to skew that way. Craig, what do you think?
In the interest of making this entertaining and causing conflict, I would agree with both of you.
Well, I think we'll put the Vertigo of Bliss into C tier then. Simple as that. That's been nice and quick, these first 2.
Shall we jump
to number 3? No, it won't last. I dare say this is where it starts to get a bit difficult. Again, only just over a year later, it looks like about a year and 3 months between each of these first 3 albums. 4th of October 2004 saw Infinity Land released. It sort of picks up the ball from the Vertigo of Bliss, but is also, when you have the context of what comes afterwards on Puzzle, it's very much a clear stepping stone, I think. Infinity Land is a very weird one for me in that every time I listen to it, I feel like, oh, really? And then I'll come away from it and I'll be like, yeah, that was really great. And then I'll listen to it and I go, oh, really? I think I like it in my head. And now I listen to it and I don't care for it all that much. Tom, I think you love this.
Dobby, this is my favorite Biffy Clyro album.
Yep.
Really?
It's the only one I own in vinyl form, and I think the opening triple threat of Glitter and Trauma, Strung to Your Ribcage, which is my favorite Biffy song, followed by My Recovery Injection, is the best 3-track run in any Biffy album. So, yeah.
I love My Recovery Injection. My Recovery Injection is up there as one of my favorite Biffy songs. Glitter and Trauma as well. You can't argue with Glitter and Trauma. I think Infinity Land suffers other than that. Again, I think you're right. Other than that opening 3-song salvo, I think Infinity Land suffers a few of the same problems as Vertigo of Bliss in that it's not that it's forgettable, but it doesn't really stick in my head very much. Craig, what do you think?
How have we gotten this far into it and no one's mentioned there's no such thing as a Jaggy Snake?
Well, Jaggy Snake is Jaggy Snake is right up there as one of my favorite Biffy songs as well, to be fair.
I think I can't remember what it was, but like when you go to see a Biffy Clyro gig in the earlier days, people were expecting, nice rock, and then you hear something like Jaggy Snake, and they're just like, what is this? And that's my favorite reaction to their music. That's why I enjoy Rolo Tomasi, who have actually guested on this track as well live. And I think
you can see that
this album is just something where it says we're not that sort of traditional band that you can pigeonhole it into, if that makes sense.
It's funny you mentioned it live. I saw them on the Opposites tour, and they busted out Jaggy Snake about halfway through. And you got to think at this point that was their ballooning into mammoth band in the UK, and being at the O2 Arena of all places, 20,000 other Biffy fans, and you're getting a song like that suddenly bust out in amidst, more ballady stuff. I think that's one of the main reasons Biffy are one of the best bands going in Britain today, is that they can sort of pull that sort of song out of their bag of tricks whilst also doing all of the stuff they've later become known for. It all just congeals into the mix that is Biffy Clyro.
It's so funny that the description you've just given there, I could have easily attributed to Bring Me the Horizon, and yet I know you despise them more than just anything else on planet Earth.
Yes. Bring me the Rise and tier listing next time. Yes.
No, scrap the Biffy one. This is now a bring me one.
No,
Dobby's still hosting. Dobby's still
The
hosting.
umbrella.
No.
Yes.
I would put this in S tier, but I don't think I'm going to get a lot of agreement on that one.
Okay, so you're S tier. What would you say, Craig?
High A.
High A.
High A.
High A. So I was looking at B/C. I think A probably comes down in the middle, doesn't it, really? And I mean, it's clear that Tom loves it. Craig clearly loves it. I'm not opposed to it going into A. What are you guys happy with A?
I feel like that's the best I'm going to get out of this. So
Now, do you think, I mean, Tom thinks it's better than Blackened Sky. Do you think that, Craig?
Oh, I forget we do this tier bit every time. I could go either way. I don't mind.
I think Blackened Sky is better for my taste. I'm gonna put it above just because it's Tom's favorite. How's that? Why not?
Oh, there you go. He's got a vinyl of it. There you go.
Yeah.
I've got a question. What makes you think they got these first albums out so quickly? Did they not have a lot going on in Scotland or something?
I wonder whether or not they, before they did the first album, whether or not they just had a lot of sort of songs written just from sort of the proto days. And then, because you do find that sometimes that bands at least the first couple of albums come out real fast because they're young and hungry and just writing. And then when the stresses of touring and, you know, the more of sort of like the business of it all, it slows up the song creation. So maybe it was that, but I'm pulling that out of my anus. So that might not be true.
That sounded like a professional answer. Like, yeah, Tom's been on tour. He knows the grind. He knows what it's like.
It's the hair. Just makes me look like a rock star.
Right then, album number 4. Sorry?
I was going to say just like the bandana.
Album number 4 was
Don't be
Puzzle.
wearing a bandana.
No, I just got the long hair, but you can't even really see it, I suppose.
Dobby's just trying to do a segue in the most rock and roll star way.
Puzzle. Came out 4th of June 2007. It was a nearly 3-year gap between Infinity Land and Puzzle. Puzzle, I think, was a lot of people's first Biffy album. If it wasn't Puzzle, it was probably only Revolutions, for the more mainstream minded, I guess. Puzzle is, in many ways, it feels like a more grown up version of Infinity Land to me. What do you guys think?
I can see that. It definitely, I remember listening to this for the first time and thinking, wow, they sound a little bit like the Foo Fighters. And I definitely think it had a bit more of that side of things where they're transcending more into the radio friendly air of things. Not to say that they're not bangers. Like, there's still some real bangers. Just like Living is a Problem, maybe my favorite song on this album. But yeah, it definitely has that more sort of polished sound to it.
This, I believe, was the first entry into like the UK charts. So like before they haven't even charted, and then I think this one came in at like number 2. So I think just through that alone, lots of people listened to them and took notice. Is it hard to, like, if we compare this to other bands, could I say, is this the Demon Days of Biffy Clyro? They get it down. This is the formula now. This is what they do. And this, after this album, is pretty much, this is Biffy Clyro.
I like your analogy there, actually, but what I would say is I think this is the self-titled if you're going to Gorillaz.
Just all the stuff before doesn't matter. That was all, you know,
Demos.
Yep.
Demos. That was Blur. That was all Blur.
Oh, yeah,
This is I like Puzzle. I don't like Puzzle as much as the majority of people like Puzzle. I think Puzzle may be the most overrated Biffy Clyro album. I love the singles on Puzzle. I don't really care for the rest of it. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of pushback on that.
Is it weird that the last single, Who's Got a Match, is arguably their most popular song?
Would you
think so?
Would you say it's their most popular song?
When I see them, it seems to be the one which most people sing along to and scream "Ah!" when it's on.
I've never been lucky enough to see him live, so I wouldn't know from.
Oh, really?
No, I've never seen them live, but I always hear Saturday Superhouse whenever it's on, like, you know, popping on Kerrang or anything like that. That's the one that you hear most from this album. Obviously, as the years have progressed, these tracks get less and less airtime. But yeah, it's It's strange. I think this is an album that, again, not to sort of stretch the Foo Fighters comparisons too much, it's an album that relies on its singles a lot. And there are still some moments. I'm not sure if it was a single, but Folding Stars is another.
Yeah,
really
Folding Stars was.
Was that a single?
Yeah, Folding Stars is my favorite.
Yeah, that's a really good song. But yeah, I think you say Infinity Land was a stepping stone. This is the one that I feel like feels like a stepping stone to what would become Only Revolutions. But interesting.
I'm on this trivia page, and unreleased tracks for this album include a song called "Help Me Become Captain," and another one called "I'm Probably in Your Pocket," which was then released as a song called "Pocket."
Oh, opposites.
Yeah, exactly. So
Biffy are clearly just always pocketing their songs, as it were, I guess.
Call me a captain. Call me the sea.
Oh dear. So Puzzle's a difficult one for me to rank, to be honest. I mean, like I say, I think the singles are really good, but I think looking at the track list as well, I think it starts incredibly strong. I think it ends incredibly strong. I think there's just a bit in the middle I'm not as keen on. Where are you sort of thinking, boys?
I'm annoyed because this album, they target me specifically with track 10.
Oh, like with their song Craig.
No, well, the track 10 is called Get Fucked Stud. And I feel like they went for me there, and I'm not happy with it. So for that, I think it...
Did you have an earring?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, after recording many podcasts in the same room as you, Craig, I'm surprised you didn't mention the song Who's Got a Match, because you be gassy.
I always ate the worst food when I knew you would come around, Tom. Oysters, I was lapping them up. B slash A.
I'll throw the ball out. I was going to say B.
Yeah, B.
B for Biffy.
B? Yeah. B for Biffy. B for Buzzle.
C for Kiffy.
Buzzle. Okay.
Wuzzle wazzle.
There's then a 2-year jump to the constantly mentioned Only Revolutions. 9th of November 2009. Only Revolutions is the one that really kicked them into gear, I think, isn't it? Only Revolutions is in many ways, I think every band has one album that's a hit factor. I think Only Revolutions is that for Biffy. Hey, this is my favorite album. I don't think they put a single note wrong on this album. I love this album. What do you guys think?
I think this is a very good album. If this is where it's starting to veer a little bit too near to the stadium rock side of things, because again, I was saying to you, Dobby, before we started recording, that doing this review of all of their albums has taught me that my own taste in music is very immature. And when a band grows up and gets out of talking about like, oh, I hate the world, oh, everything so sucks growing up, and I tune out a little bit, and I think this is them growing up a bit too much for my taste. Don't get me wrong, songs like Mountains are huge. Golden Rule has that energy that I really, really dig. But this is an album that I feel like this is the bittersweet end of the high point of Biffy's discography.
It's no longer described as Tom Rock after this.
No, it's stadium rock. It's not angsty sad boy rock.
I think this was the first time I saw them live during this album. As you said, they blew up. When albums blow up, bands seem to just go into the festival scene. And I can't remember what it was, but I saw them at Sonosphere that year, and I think they had loads of other people headlining, so to speak. And this was Biffy Clyro's first headline festival act. And I was just singing along to every song. Like, people looked at me like I was a madman. And because they covered most of the songs from this album, it was just a good old time. Good old time. And also, Is this how they spell horses in Scotland with a W? Is that how they do it?
Horses.
Someone.
That was Irish. I said it Irish.
Hey, it's all the same, right? Wink.
This is a good album. This is just a good album. Apart from this Cardle cover.
Great album.
Oh yeah.
God, well, you can't throw that on them. I also saw Biffy for the first time on this album, and it's not as fun a story. They were supporting Foo Fighters. First time I saw Foo Fighters at the Milton Keynes Bowl, they supported. And in all my time, I think they're one of the bands who most looked like they didn't want to be there. Honestly, it was quite sad. I had a good time listening to them all the same, but yeah, I don't think Simon Neil particularly infused about being on stage that night, to be honest. And then Foo Fighters were amazing.
If they were still in that, emo phase, as Tom calls it, that angst, isn't that the whole thing about, 90s rock? We're so cool, we don't want to be here, that sort of thing. Could it have been that?
Maybe. I mean, the album came out in 2009, did I say? So it is 9th of November 2009. So I'd have seen them, it was the 3rd of July 2011. I remember the date specifically. So, I mean, they'd probably been on the tour for this album for 2 years at this point. I'd imagine they were probably pretty run down. Let's talk about putting this in then. Let's do favorite song actually as well. It's difficult for me, but I love The Captain. I think The Captain's the best Biffy song. I just adore it, guys.
Golden Rule.
Yeah, excellent shout. Great.
Did you know Mountains was released like a year before the album came out?
I was thinking that because I remember it being on Kerrang all the time and it not having an album tied to it. And then eventually it was like, oh, okay, there's finally an album. But it was a long time before it dropped.
I think this album's full of too many sing-along bangers that I can choose, like Mountains, Golden Rule, Bubbles, Many a Horror. Like, they're all good songs, man. It's hard. You wouldn't pick out of your adopted children, would you?
Yeah, what am I doing?
Why did you have to qualify that with adopted?
Because this isn't my music. It's Biffy
Because you would pick your actual children. Okay, I'll throw it out. I'd put this in S. Very good, personally.
I just to play that rambunctious devil's advocate, I would say Many of Horror is my least favourite song on this album.
Is it because it's a Matt Cardle cover?
That probably has tinged it ever so slightly, even though that's not their
But your mum knows it now. That's what makes it good.
My mum has better taste than Matt Cardle. My mum
I thought you were going to say my mum has better taste than me.
She probably does. My mum actually quite likes Biffy Clyro, so.
Yeah, because Matt Cardle introduced a whole new generation to the Biffy Clyro.
We've given Matt Cardle more relevance than he's had in the past 8 years.
I believe Dolby told me once he's on Coronation Street or something. So
I don't know. He dated Mel C for a while. Lucky boy.
Oh, the Mel C Minute with Matthew Dobby.
We should make that a thing. I could talk about Mel C all day.
I would put this in S.
I completely agree, but I think Tom's going to drag that down. What do you reckon, Tom?
Personally, I would put it in a high B, but
B?
High B. I can absolutely see why you've given it S, and I think for the cultural significance, it probably deserves to be an S. So,
big time. I'm putting it in there. That's where Only Revolutions goes. Okay, we sort of jump a bit. 4 years, longest gap so far. It's only 3 and a bit years.
Do you say jump or nosedive?
So it's tough, right? Opposites is a double album. It came out on the 28th of January 2013. Now, when Opposites came out, I adored Opposites. My favorite Biffy show I've ever seen was them headlining the O2 Arena on the Opposites tour, not long after it came out. Incidentally, I was queuing all day for that in the freezing O2. And then I got very sick for about 3 weeks afterwards. But hey, it was a good time. I dare say it's maybe even in my top 10 gigs of all time. It was that good a show. I loved it. They then headlined Reading, and I saw part of that set. I didn't see the whole thing, but they were really fucking great. That's gone down as one of the best headline sets in recent years at Reading Festival.
Do you mind me asking what made you miss the entirety of it?
My girlfriend at the time was not feeling so great, and so I had to take her back to the tent. I think we got about half. I could hear the captain as we were leaving, and I think that's how they ended the main set.
And that's why you ended the relationship. I understand.
About a year and a half later, but yeah.
Will stem from that.
Opposites is a double album, and a double album comes with a lot of baggage in a lot of ways because it's very difficult for bands to get them right. I off the top of my head, I can only think of 2 that I love. And, that's The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails and Melancholy by Smashing Pumpkins.
Can we quickly segue? Tom, what's yours?
My favourite double album?
Yeah.
I
can tell you mine, because not many people like it.
What is it?
Go ahead.
Stadium Arcadium. I really enjoy it.
That's better than the one I thought someone was going to say In Your Honor, which I would have completely have disagreed with because I do not like that album. But
half of In Your Honor is great, and the other half is fine.
I think it's not a double album as it is two complementary albums, but I would say Coheed and Cambria, Afterman, Ascension, and Descension. They didn't release at the same time, so I don't know if it counts, but they are definitely two sides of the same coin. So I would say they're an honourable mention.
So Opposites, I mean, again, in terms of Biffy Clyro in the mainstream culture, Opposites just continued that rise. Like I said, they headlined Reading Festival, which is one of the biggest festivals in the UK. Off the back of it, sadly, nowadays, yeah. This was at a point when it was still just on the cusp of being great. There's big songs on Opposites. I think the lead single was Black Chandelier, which I don't think anyone is going to say is their favorite Biffy Clyro song, quite frankly. I think the biggest song on this is probably Biblical, which is a song I'm not overly keen on personally. I like it, but it's not one of my favorites. If I were being completely honest when it comes to Opposites, I think side B is far stronger than side A. Would you agree with that?
They said in an interview they had so many songs, they felt it necessary to make a double album, and there's no filler in it whatsoever.
Well, if that's the case, then I disagree.
And
I think side 2 is better than side 1. Would you agree with that, Craig?
Do you know what? It's because the way I consume music now is just, discs don't matter. It's just a long list. And then by the point I've listened to this album in particular, I just have the feeling like this is a Biffy Clyro album. If I'm going to make a comparison to more other bands, this is the Meteora to their Hybrid theory. It's just a continuation. If you listen to this after, the previous album, it's just going to sound like a continuation. And obviously, they just got so much music. Apparently, he opens the microwave and he's got another song about, heated food or whatever. And he just needs to splurge it onto another album.
Are you hungry?
No, I had curly fries and burger before I came here. It was great.
What do you think, Tom? You're going to come at this from a very different angle to us too, I think. Do you have a favourite of the two sides to this?
I would say I would agree that the second half has a bit more oomph behind it. I think the first half tries again to hit too much of that sort of radio-friendly, dare I say, dad rock side of things.
How dare you?
I dared.
I think side 1, if I'm being completely honest, has maybe 5 good or great songs, and the rest are just sort of fine. If that, I think side 2 probably has 8 and maybe 2 that I'm not so keen on.
I think
if memory serves, I think each disc had its own name. I'll look that up while you talk.
They did. I can tell you them now if you wish.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The first one is called The Sand at the Core of Our Bones, and the second one is called The Land at the End of Our Toes.
That's right. It's from a lyric and sounds like balloons, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very nice rhyme, and it's also the most Biffy Clyro named thing I've ever heard at the same time.
But anyway, sorry, Tom, you were going to say?
I think, as you said, the sound of this album is very much a follow-on, a very sort of direct follow-on from Only Revolutions. But I think the things that it's sort of, what's the positive version of Fool Me Once, Shame on Me, Fool Me Twice? Blah, blah, blah. Basically, the appeal is slightly worn off to where you can't.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, kind of, but to the point that it's just sort of, it does feel like more of the same, and that's not always a good thing. Even if
I think it feels like Only Revolutions, but sort of with the grandiosity turned up to 11.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like they're trying to do too much of the same thing, but also still taking away the things that I personally like about Biffy Clyro. So,
did you both know they also released a single disc version of this album? Does that?
I did. That was the first one I got. No, I was disappointed because I'd ordered it on Amazon and I got that. And I was like, "Where's the rest of the songs?" So I just pinned that off on my sister, I believe, and got the full thing.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I was disappointed. I can't remember what songs were removed, left off of it, but
just 14 selected tracks. So it's weird because obviously in their own artistic view, they were like, we need to fit all the songs on here. But at some point, someone somewhere went, well, what if we didn't? And then that happened, and they were like, yeah, let's sell stuff.
So I like Opposites, but I really don't like it as much as I used to, I think is the thing. I used to love it. Now I just sort of come down on, yeah, it's cool. If I want to listen to a Biffy album, it's not the one I'm going to go for. Although incidentally, it's a double album, and I think it's only about 10 minutes longer than their longest single album, which is, always weird to me. What do you reckon? I'm looking sort of B, C, maybe.
I just want to say my favorite song on this record.
Oh yeah, go.
Is my second favorite overall. Biblical.
Mm-hmm.
It just connects with me. Like I just remember going out for a run in the rain. It was pitch black dark, and that guitar solo comes on, and I'm just like, yeah, this is great shit.
My favorite. I don't know what my favorite is. I think I'd probably go. Oh,
Captain.
No, Picture a Knife Fight or Woo Woo. Honestly, I love those two, and that's how it all ends. If this were just disc 2, I would likely be putting this in S tier, to tell the truth, but it's not, and so yeah, I'm looking at B/C. Tom, do you have a favorite song on this?
I would probably say Black Chandelier, just because I've heard it.
Really?
Well, yeah.
These are the two I pointed out, Black Chandelier and Biblical, which I think is quite funny. And you just kept quiet on it, both of you.
Well, it's because I think it's just the one that I've listened to the most, and therefore just not to say like it's Stockholm Syndrome per se, but just, you listen to a song enough and it can go either of two ways. You can either hate it even more, or you can sort of be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll hum along to that. And it might not otherwise have been something you dig too much. It's very much the latter. I've been worn down. It's okay. It's a good song. But the rest of the album, bar a couple of points like Biblical, just doesn't really do anything for me.
He says Stockholm Syndrome. It's not that, but then he makes it sound like it's completely that afterwards.
I don't want to sound mean, but I personally would give this the lower end of C and give it a bit of the D. So
You want to fuck it?
I've got 2 holes to choose from. It's a double album. No, I think we're going to have to meet in the middle somewhere with this.
What do you reckon, Craig?
I'd put it low B, high C, I suppose.
Low B, high C.
Yeah.
I reckon, yeah, let's put it low B for me, if we're all in agreement.
Before Puzzle.
Yeah, Puzzle above
yes.
Opposites.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
Right. Okay. Then we jump another 3 years ahead. This is Ellipsis, 8th of July, 2016. Now, I think a lot of people don't rate Ellipsis particularly much, especially because a lot of the people who grew to love Biffy over the last 2 albums, I guess, sort of felt it had lost some of that spark. Now, this is a point I feel like, I'm going to come into contention here, because in many ways, I think Ellipsis may be my second favorite Biffy album. I adore Ellipsis. What do you guys think?
I was going to say, I think this album is way better than the last 2.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Craig, what do you think?
I mean, music-wise, yes, I'm in agreement with both of you. Cover-wise, I think we could do it better.
Oh, we should. We totally should. The thumbnail for this should be that album.
No, absolutely not.
You could be the one in the middle, Tom.
Yeah, you get Simon Neil treatment.
No, no, thank you.
I'm interested you both said that, because I thought I was going to have to really argue this. I think a lot of people really aren't so keen on Ellipsis. I think some of my favorite Biffy songs are on this album. I mean, you've got Howl is right up there for me. Animal Style, Wolves of Winter, Flammable. even the slower moments, like Rearrange is really good. I adore this album, except for Small Wishes, which is a song I despise. But yeah, I love Ellipsis.
I love this album. Well, maybe love's too strong a word. I really dig this album purely because it feels like they're having more fun making this album than the last two. It feels like...
Oh, you get blast beats in the middle of it.
Well, yeah, it feels like the wheels are off and sort of maybe they've gone through that cycle of, the up and coming band. Then you go to the sort of, we've got to sort of prove our credentials as a band on the big stage. And now that we've done that, what the hell is that?
And what?
An advert started playing randomly. Jesus Christ, that made me nervous. It's just about
to fly. You were just
like, Jesus Christ. I don't know why that started playing there, but definitely need to not buy Schweppes anymore. That's what the advert was for. Now you've got a band that the wheels are off. They can kind of do whatever they want and sort of experiment a bit more. And I think you've got that on full display here. And that's what makes
I think you're in many ways, I think it's the coming together of that first block I said, the first three albums, and then the second block. I think in many ways, Ellipsis is the start of the congealment into Biffy realizing you can have both and arguably being all the better for it. Craig, what do you think of Ellipsis?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you two have just said, which makes my piece less of a exclamation point. But I think this album, at the beginning, I said that they're not just a plain old rock band. They could be whatever they want to be. And I think they recorded this away from Scotland, and they just had more inspiration of different parts of the world. And obviously they've been touring, they've been seeing new music, they've been going to all these different places. And they were just like, let's do an album that is still us, but let's just spread our wings a little bit, see what we can actually accomplish here. And I believe it's thumbs up all round from everyone.
Thumbs up all round. Okay, so favorite songs then. I'll chuck mine in because I think Howl is just astoundingly good. I adore Howl. If not, even the bonus tracks on this I really like. And Don't Won't Can't I think is an incredible Biffy song. Craig, what about you?
I will simply say Walls of Winter. When you first hear that song, you just think he's a crazy Scottish man just with a guitar. And then, no, actually, they're words, and I can sing along to them if I choose to learn them. So you're getting evolution yourself when you listen to them.
Oh, I love you, Craig. I love you so much. Yeah, I agree. Walls of Winter. I think I have just like a weird penchant, whatever the word is for like opening tracks, unless they're like a proper instrumental track. I think the opening of an album, because it's that first impression, and oftentimes that's the one that lingers. And I think this one gives such a good first impression that it carries you through the rest of the album.
Cool. Okay. Well, I feel much more confident in saying I'd be giving this at the very least an A tier. What about you guys?
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah? Well, okay. We've got to decide whereabouts it goes. I mean, I would have it over Infinity Land and Blackened Sky. I don't know about... I'm pretty sure Tom wouldn't. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, because those first three albums, whilst they are good, they're a bit of a blur, I feel. And maybe it's because...
Hey, there it is. See? Gorillaz Blur.
I think this one stands out to me more. And because of that, perhaps it will be ranking higher in my own thoughts. I think it's hard because old music, sometimes it's just old music and you don't want to travel back to it as much. And with this, I probably listened to this album more than the others. So I would put it above them.
Yeah, and I'm sure Tom would say, at the very least, Infinity Land is above it. But
I would put Blackened Sky above it as well. But if you want to put him somewhere sandwiched in the middle, then so be it.
I think, once again, just because you clearly love Infinity Land, I don't think it's doing it a disservice to put Ellipsis in between the two necessarily.
In betwixt, some may say.
Betwixt
in the midst of the two.
Ah, the midst. We haven't said the midst in a while.
It's done. There we go.
Excellent choice, my friend. Now we get into very recent territory. Both of these albums have come out during the last 2 years. We start with A Celebration of Endings, came out on the 14th of August 2020, and I think received an awful lot of acclaim. I think people love this album. Again, coming off the back of Ellipsis, which people seem to be a bit muted on for the most part. A lot of people love the Celebration of Endings. I don't necessarily count myself in that. I think a Celebration of Endings is good, but I don't think it's great. Craig?
That's a very cliched thing to say there, Dobby. Good, but not great. I would agree with that sentiment on that cliche.
I would go a little bit more stronger. I would say this is a largely forgettable album, but with nothing offensive.
But what?
Okay.
So is this more Biffy Clyro, or is this the Ellipses continued? It's hard. I think.
I think this is a step. I think this is a step backwards. I think there is a lot more sort of, again, sort of veering on back to dad rock on this thing. Like
I don't agree with you there, Tom. I think in many ways this is a step into Biffy getting even weirder. I think there's a lot of experimentation on a Celebration of Endings, and Biffy really, embracing who Biffy are. I mean, you look at a song like Cop Syrup, and he's back to screaming near enough full time on that song. I think, there are moments of dad rock, make no doubt about that. I think Instant History, make no doubt about it. Instant History might be maybe the worst song I think Biffy have ever done. I hate Instant History. Space is very dad rock, but I think a song like Tiny Indoor Fireworks is just Biffy firing on all cylinders.
That is the best song on the album.
It's either that or North of No South for me, because I love North of No South, and End of, actually. End of is great. I think in many ways, and we'll touch on it with the follow-up to this, I think even more. I think in many ways this is Biffy truly embracing themselves, and if this is the sort of thing we can expect from them going forward, I think it's a very exciting future at the very least.
When we listen to this, obviously we're not going to mention the soundtrack album that they did.
Balance Not Symmetry.
Do you think that album might have had a influence on their style going forward, or do you reckon? Because I know they worked closely with the filmmakers, didn't they, to make the music? So it is technically their own, and they weren't just like, make some music for us, mate. Yeah, all right. Do you reckon that has an effect going forward?
I do to an extent. We're not going to rank Balance Not Symmetry, but that album I thought was really good as just a listen on its own. I've not seen the movie. If we were putting Balance Not Symmetry in, I'd probably put it high B, personally. I really loved it. And listening back to it recently, I was like, yeah, this is still good, but I think I've lost a lot of the love I had for it initially. I do think there's a very clear sort of difference between, and not just because it's a soundtrack, I think there's a very clear difference between Ellipsis and Balance Not Symmetry, but I do think there are elements on Balance Not Symmetry that are maintained on a Celebration of Endings. You think of the title track on Balance Not Symmetry. I mean, again, we're getting Simon Neil going a bit screamy and perhaps being a bit more in your face. And I think the album serving as a soundtrack to a movie as it does mean they had to think about the way they were writing their songs in a different way. And I think regardless of who you are, the difference in songwriting style is going to stick with you even as you go into new albums. I look at someone like Trent Reznor in Nine Inch Nails. He's arguably very well known, but not arguably, he's very well known for soundtracking movies at this point. There are probably a lot of people out there who don't know him as Nine Inch Nails, but know him as a movie scorer and the sort of thing. And I think working in that way very clearly changed the way he writes songs as well, even for the better at times in present day.
I would put this at B, just in case we're running.
That's a Celebration of Endings, yeah?
Yeah. I would put Trent Reznor in B. Just.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. It's okay. No. It's allowed to be wrong.
I would put a Celebration of Endings in B as well.
I think I would put it in. It would be B or C for me. I'm not sure.
I would put it in C.
Oh wow, okay.
I would put it in C if that helps at all.
Which I would say I don't think is a reflection on its quality. I think it's more a reflection on the quality of who Biffy are as a band, that it struggles to stand up against the rest of them. In and of itself, I think it's a good album. I'm inclined to put it above Vertigo of Bliss in C. Anyone disagree?
I don't feel strongly enough to put it in B.
I think that's a compromise. If Craig thinks it's in B, I personally think Vertigo is probably a little bit better, but that's just because of my nostalgia for the old stuff. So yeah, put it above it. Put it above it.
I think we're figuring out that they are a weird band at this point.
A very weird band, yeah. Okay, well, we come to the most recent album, which is a month old today, I think. Was it the 22nd of October, 2021? We're recording this on the 22nd of November. This album has been out a month. Now, I listened to it a month ago. Had you two listened to it before we decided to record this?
Nope, had to listen to it for this.
Can I just say that if you showed me both of this album and the one previous and said, which one's the most recent one, I would not be able to tell you on cover alone.
Yeah, they're very similar.
So I done my research. I listened to this because I saw them at this year's Reading Festival, and it ignited a passion once again of Biffy Clyro. And this is a sister album to their last one. So even they say it's a continuation of the last album. So I feel like saying that is an easy win for me. That's my comment.
Now, Biffy Clyro typically do sort of B-side compilations, like Lonely Revolutions, Similarities came after Opposites. There was a lot of confusion when the Myth of the Happily Ever After came out as to whether it is actually an official album or if it is just one of those follow-ups. Biffy have said it's themselves, no, this is officially our 9th studio album. And I'm happy to take it as that. I think this is better than a celebration of endings. I think this is great, actually. I love the Myth of the Happily Ever After. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I enjoy it. It is rocky. And I think from the ups and downs you've had of Biffy Clyro throughout all these albums, as we've discussed, this being the latest one, it just feels right for them. You know, it's hard to describe what it is that makes it a Biffy Clyro album, and a good one at that. But I enjoy it. And I think even if the arguments of is it a B-side, is it not a B-side compilation, I think it speaks to how much music they can actually create in one godly year, apparently. One godly year, godforsaken year.
Yeah, it's been a godforsaken year.
Yes. And I think with everything that's happened, this was a nice thing to have. And there have been some pandemic albums which have not been nice to have. So
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Elton John.
Tom, what do you think about the Myth of the Happily Ever After?
I agree that it feels like, again, quite a natural flow from the previous album. It has got a lot of tracks that I like. I have to give a special shout out to Slurpy Slurpy Sleep to Sleep.
Yeah, boy.
It's a fun word to say, and it's also a pretty good song. So yeah, I think I need to listen to this album at least once or twice more to fully sort of make a really, really sort of definitive opinion on it. But I think I prefer this to the previous album.
Yeah, I totally do. Craig, do you?
In my mind, I see them level, and I'm not too sure whether that is because of the artwork, but I think this, if we're going to rank it on an S to D sort of tier, this is definitely higher.
Yeah, so we will agree then. We think Myth of the Happily Ever After is at the very least better than the celebration of endings. I think my favorite song on it is Denier. I love Denier. It's just a real rip-roaring fun time. Craig?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I heard Unknown Male 1 at the...
I think it was a single, yeah.
At the Reading Festival. And hearing that live was very good. If it was that song, I may have been inebriated a little bit. But listening back to that, I enjoy that one.
Excellent choices. Okay, well, we're coming towards the end. We've got a pretty full list here. I think it's safe to say it's not a Biffy Clyro, no. I think, you know what? I'm going to go on a limb. I'd take this over Puzzle and Opposites at the very least.
Yeah, I would say B.
Yeah, I would put it between Puzzle and Opposites, personally.
You like putting stuff in between other stuff, didn't you, Tom?
Oh, easy now.
I'm not opposed to that, honestly. I don't think it reflects on the quality of the album. I don't think it says it's anything. If anything, being in amongst Puzzle and Opposites should show you just how good this is. And quite frankly, Vertigo of Bliss and the Celebration of Endings being in C tier shouldn't reflect badly on them either. I'm certainly happy for Biffle Happily Ever After to go into B tier between Puzzle and Opposites if we so deem it.
Deem it so.
They've obviously, with these albums, they obviously have certain styles to them. Do you reckon the next one's going to be the last of the paint over the eyes style?
I reckon the paint over the eyes style is purely a case of, I mean, like you say, it was a sister album. I reckon it's just that sort of thing. I don't think the next one, whenever it make it, hey, unless they do it very soon. If it comes out next year, maybe it will be.
Okay. Just a thought.
I'm very interested to see what they do next. I mean, they've only just released an album and then a year ago, another one. I'm very interested to see where they go next. If Biffle Happily Ever After and Celebration of Endings are a sign of things to come. With that said, though, we've now got our tier list in an order. I'll run it through and we'll see if we're happy with it. There's nothing in Biffy Clyro. C tier, we've got the Vertigo of Bliss at the bottom and a Celebration of Endings just above that. Into B tier, we've got Opposites, the Myth of the Happily Ever After, and Puzzle sitting at the top there. In A tier, we've got Blackened Sky, Ellipsis, and Infinity Land sitting on top, and up in very good, or the S tier, if you will, Only Revolution sits on its own, as I think probably fair enough. Is there anything we don't agree with there, boys?
I mean, I would put Infinity Land at the top, but I think, for its cultural impact, Only Revolutions probably deserves it.
That is the most politician answer, and I'm on board with it fully.
Excellent.
Only Revelations, mate, is
Only what?
What did I say?
Revelations.
Oh, that's a revelation in itself. Only Revolutions is just, in my eyes, like that album is just something you put on from beginning to end, and I'm just enjoying every minute of it. And I think there are only a few albums in life like that, and I think that's
excellent choice.
So high up there, yeah.
Only Revolutions is an astoundingly good album, no doubt about it. But there's our Biffy Clyro tier list, and everybody. That's been another episode of Ranking Spankings. I don't think there's much more to say. I don't know what's coming next in terms of ranking. I don't think we have a plan for a next music one, do we?
No. If you have any suggestions, let us know in the comments below.
But until next time, make sure to check out more stuff on the UDS Music channel. As Tom said earlier, interviews, more rankings and stuff. We've done Green Day, we've done Foo Fighters, Aquabats, Craig and Neil did. I think we've done someone else. Gorillaz, of course. Did we do The Offspring? I think we did The Offspring, did we?
No.
We should do
No, we've not done The Offspring.
Songs next.
Oh, that's an interesting choice. Actually, that's not a bad choice.
It's just going to be the soundtrack to Spider-Verse, surely, at like S tier, and everything else is actually no. It'd be Chad Kroeger Hero,
yeah.
Then Into the Spider-Verse, then everything else is irrelevant.
Well, with nothing else to say, let us know if you have any ideas as to who we should rank next. You'll get a mix of us for some different artists, I'm sure. And thanks for watching another episode of Ranking Spankings. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. My
Bye,
hat is cut off
Captain.
by my blur.
Captain, get it? Yeah.
I am the captain now.